going through your highlights section. Let's jump right in, y'all. So this is a screen recording of me showing you guys Miss Erica Kirk's Instagram, where she is talking about if you could call yourself, 5 years from now and give yourself advice, what would you say? Don't try cocaine.
We're diving into some seriously wild info about TPUSA today. And surprisingly, this time I'm actually going to be defending them, at least partly, because Dan just dropped another video and wow, this one's intense. This guy has been putting in some serious work. If you've seen what he's doing, you know he's out here digging through financial records that go way, way back. He's uncovering all kinds of payments and connections that most people wouldn't even think to look for. It's like he's piecing together a financial puzzle that no one else noticed. Now here's the thing. Anytime you're dealing with big organizations, especially nonprofits, you're gonna see stuff like this pop up. When large amounts of money are being moved around, people tend to work with contractors or companies they already know, or sometimes even have stakes in. It might not look great, but it happens all the time. If you think about it, it's pretty easy to see how that kind of setup happens. Like, imagine you're in charge of a $100 million nonprofit and need to hire someone for a specific job. A lot of people would just build their own company for that service and hire themselves. It's not exactly shocking. It's just how the system works sometimes. I'm not saying anything illegal here. Let's be clear about that. If it were, I wouldn't even go there. I'm just pointing out how certain things play out, and honestly, none of this is shocking. It's pretty easy to see how the pieces fit once you pay attention. So when Charlie started talking about doing an in-depth audit, people couldn't help but wonder what made him bring that up. Now, we're gonna take a look at what he said, because there's some really interesting context worth breaking down. Plus, someone sent me a video from a creator named Patriotic Housewife, and I've got to say, I'm intrigued by her work. I actually went ahead and followed her page right away. Gotta support creators who put in effort like that.
Isn't that interesting? I'll go ahead and pull a still photo up for you guys in case, we didn't really get a good look at this.
But before we dive into the details, let's talk about something bigger happening here. It seems like someone is pushing creators to go after TPUSA and even Erica Kirk. It's almost like there's a wave of content forming around that topic. And let's be real, when videos criticize these names, they get pushed hard by the algorithm. The engagement spikes. But if you talk about something wholesome or unrelated, suddenly crickets. No traction at all. That's not random, it's how the system rewards controversy. Anyway, let's look at the clip from Patriotic Housewife's video. She found something in Erica Kirk's Instagram favorites that was clearly meant to be deleted, but wasn't. And yeah, it definitely caught people off guard. The message itself wasn't bad, it was actually a warning not to try certain substances. That's a good message, but depending on how someone reads it, it could easily be twisted into something else. The way it was phrased made it sound like she was saying, if I could talk to my younger self, I'd say don't try that. And of course, that phrasing got people speculating, wondering if it hinted at personal experience. Now, I'm not judging anyone for their past choices. We've all made mistakes and tried things we shouldn't have. It's just that in her position, as someone who represents a more traditional image, it's not surprising that people reacted strongly when that post surfaced. Yeah, that situation definitely doesn't look great. Anyway, let's switch over to Dan's work for a second, because seriously, his research is on another level. I actually connected with him during a live stream, and ever since then, I've been keeping an eye on his content. The guy goes deep.
That's the total I can document from Turning Point USA's own tax filings. It's their numbers, it's their signatures.
19.6 million is the number you just said.
And it's all reported under penalty of perjury for the IRS. Before we go any further, let me tell you exactly who we're talking about. We're going to talk about Jake Hoffman. He's an Arizona state senator. He's been indicted as one of Arizona's fake electors for signing documents that claim Donald Trump won the 2020 election when he never did. Trump pardoned him in November of 2005, but
his breakdowns are detailed and his documentation is wild. It's seriously impressive stuff. If you haven't checked out his work yet, you should. I'm only reacting to the start of his latest video here, but trust me, the full thing is worth watching. Now, while I don't agree with everything he says, a lot of what he found really makes you think. Some of these transactions and connections he uncovered raise fair questions about how business and partnerships are being handled behind the scenes. At one point, he brings up Jake Hoffman, and that's where things get even more interesting. I didn't even realize how many layers there were to his background until now. From what's being discussed online, he's been tied to digital operations that were later flagged by major social media platforms. But here's the twist, in a way that actually supports part of his defense. Think about it. If he was running digital engagement campaigns that got so much traction that platforms stepped in, that means his work was effective. Whether or not certain tactics broke platform rules, it clearly made enough noise to draw attention. So if TPUSA hired his company to manage that kind of online activity, that's not shocking at all. It just shows they were paying for reach and influence, even if it ruffled some feathers online. So yeah, Meta banning him definitely shows how big that operation must have been. When I hear that he was paid millions, I don't really blink. It just means he was running a serious business. I'm not sure what the financial model looks like for something like that, but honestly, it could easily check out. That doesn't mean everything around it is clean, though. Some parts of these stories definitely raise eyebrows. Now, before anyone thinks I'm suddenly defending TPUSA,
the Arizona State case is still active. His company, Rally Forge, was permanently banned from Facebook in October of 2020. Facebook called it a domestic troll farm that he was running and was banned after that. Turning Point entities still paid him. Turning Point continued paying his companies over $7 million. They just continued paying. They never stopped. A company banned for doing fraud, essentially. Think about that.
let's be clear. I'm just calling things as I see them. I'm not here to take sides, just to break things down fairly. So Dan mentioned some of this activity dates back around 2011 to 2021. That's a full decade. And that made me think, 10 years is a long time. A lot can happen in that span. People can rebuild, start over, and completely change their financial situation. I know that firsthand. Back then, I had my own major setbacks. I had sold a company, most of the payment came in stock, and then that stock crashed to nothing. On top of that, I had personally guaranteed big loans that the acquiring company didn't cover. It was a nightmare. My attorney basically told me, you'll win if you sue, but you won't actually recover the money. So I had to take the hit, file for bankruptcy, and start from scratch. But fast forward a decade and life can look completely different. I paid off debts, bought property, and stabilized everything. That's just how time and persistence work. So when people act like it's impossible for someone to bounce back financially in 10 years, that's just unrealistic. The real question isn't if they could, it's how they did it. And that's where the real story lies. So just to make it clear, the person being discussed here is Stacey Sheraton. From what's being said, she's in charge of fundraising for TPUSA. Reports say she earns around $180,000 a year, but she also runs 2 additional companies. Here's where things start getting complicated. According to the information being shared, those companies have allegedly been receiving checks from TPUSA for the past several years. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say exactly
that he had big balls, describing himself as a person who basically knows and runs everything. He was also indicted with Jake Hoffman as a fake elector and pardoned again by Donald Trump. His disclosed compensation from Turning Point entities total over $1.4 million. However, in 2021, he put $650,000 worth of a down payment on a $1.95 million home in Mesa, Arizona. But just back in 2011, he was losing condos due to foreclosure and he had his wages garnished. And look, I'm not claiming to be any saint, and there's lots of people with financial issues, but if you're working for a nonprofit, you're putting a $650,000 down payment and making millions of dollars. I think this needs to be explained.
How that setup is supposed to work, but it does raise some interesting questions. If she's already being paid for her role, why would extra payments be routed through separate organizations she owns? Maybe it's a commission model or a consulting arrangement, but it's definitely a structure worth examining. Apparently, the person overseeing some of these finances isn't a certified CPA either, which adds another layer of confusion. And remember, Charlie Kirk himself once mentioned wanting a thorough audit-style review of everything, so clearly, even inside the group, there's awareness of how messy this can get. Let's be clear here. No one's suggesting anything dark or extreme happened because of these transactions. That's not what's being said. What's being pointed out is simply how these systems often work in big organizations. People in high-level fundraising positions sometimes create external entities for handling parts of the business, and those entities get paid for services. Still, it does make you wonder, why go through all those extra steps instead of paying straightforward commissions or bonuses? Maybe it's about optics, maybe it's just how these circles operate. Either way, it's fascinating to see how complex the money flow becomes once politics and influence get involved. And honestly, watching how different creators present this kind of content is entertaining in itself. Some of them film super casually, handheld cameras, raw angles, quick takes, and somehow it makes the whole topic feel even more chaotic and real. Man, this setup cracks me up every time. I don't get why so many creators film hunched over their desks. It's like part of the look now. Still, it's funny watching it play out. But here's where things really start getting wild. People are suddenly realizing that a lot of those accounts online, all saying the same exact thing the second a topic drops, might not be organic at all. Shocking, right? For years, everyone assumed that all those identical takes popping up on social media were genuine opinions. But now it's becoming clear that a lot of that chatter is coordinated. And honestly, in today's world, it's nearly impossible to do politics without some level of that digital strategy. The game has changed completely. If one side is using these tactics and the other isn't, they're already at a massive disadvantage.
Employee raising money for Turning Point USA, and she's on the payroll. She has 2 companies connected to her, Cloverstone Ventures and Lion Rock Ventures. There's actually a third one, but I can't fully disclose, so we'll leave that out for this one. $5.3 million was received in fundraising fees from Turning Point USA to these entities, Cloverstone Ventures and Lion Rock Ventures. Paid twice. Once as an employee, once through her companies. The American Red Cross spends 4% of its budget on fundraising. This is something else entirely because Red Cross is a multi-billion-dollar company. And overseeing all of this at this time is Justin Olson, the CFO or Chief Financial Officer for TPUSA.
That's what people mean when they talk about shaping public perception. It's not a conspiracy, it's real strategy. Back in the day, manufacturing consent referred to how traditional media, TV networks, newspapers, big outlets framed public opinion. But now it's all happening online. The key is making it look like your opinion is the majority one. Because once people see that everyone seems to agree, they stop questioning it. They go along with what's trending instead of thinking it through themselves. That's how influencers suddenly blow up overnight. When the system works right, you can make anyone look wildly popular, even if that buzz was built artificially at first. Then brands jump in, companies follow the hype, and suddenly the illusion becomes reality. It's fascinating and a little unsettling how easy it is to shape what people believe online now. Most folks just want to belong, to feel like they're on the right side of things, and when they see a wave forming, they jump right in without even realizing how carefully that wave was created. So when you zoom out and really look at everything we've been talking about, it starts to feel like one massive interconnected system. Each part feeds into the next. Money, influence, social media, perception, it's all tangled together in a way that feels both brilliant and unsettling at the same time. And TPUSA, like many big organizations, sits right in the middle of that storm. Let's be real. Power doesn't move randomly. It moves through people who understand how to control attention, how to frame stories, and how to guide emotions. That's what this whole discussion around fundraising, media reach, and influence boils down to. It's not just about who raises money or who runs an ad campaign, it's about who shapes beliefs. And in this era, beliefs are the real currency. Think about it. If you control the narrative, you don't need to convince everyone. You just need to make enough noise that it looks like everyone's already convinced. Once that happens, people fall in line automatically, and that's where the real genius or danger of all this lies. These systems don't need to force anyone, they just steer the crowd gently, almost invisibly. So when Dan drops his videos and starts connecting the dots, what he's actually doing is peeling back that illusion.
Points word for word while he was supposed to be regulating that utility. That's who's watching their money. So that's who we're talking about. Now, in my last 2 videos, you know something is definitely off here. This video is going to show you the full picture. Everything I'm about to show you or talk about comes from public filings, from their own tax filings.
He's not just saying, look at this transaction or this person got paid. He's saying, pay attention to the structure behind it. Who's paying who? Why do the same names keep showing up? Why do people with financial ties also end up with influence over messaging? Those aren't coincidences, they're strategy. And this is why so many creators online end up getting caught in the middle. The algorithm rewards the loudest voices, not the most accurate ones. So if you post something that fits the larger online mood, especially when it's controversial or polarizing, it gets pushed hard. Suddenly, everyone's seeing it, sharing it, reacting to it. But if you post something measured, calm, or positive, it's like it disappears. That's how the digital ecosystem keeps feeding itself, by amplifying conflict and controversy. Now, when you bring in someone like Kirk into this mix, it gets even messier. She's part of a network that's both personal and professional, tied to the same world of media, politics, and influence. So when people start digging through her posts or old favorites, they're not just doing it for gossip, they're trying to find cracks in the image. And because of how fast social media moves, even one misunderstood post can spiral into a storm of assumptions overnight. The thing that's almost ironic here is that everyone involved is playing a role in the same cycle they claim to hate. The critics need the chaos to grow their views. The organizations need the critics to make them seem like underdogs. The platforms need both sides fighting because conflict equals engagement, and engagement equals money. It's a self-sustaining system powered by outrage and clicks. And this brings us to the heart of the issue. Nobody in these battles is ever really winning. The more attention the drama gets, the more every side benefits in some way. Dan gets more viewers. The critics get more exposure. Even the people being criticized gain sympathy or renewed attention. That's the paradox of the digital world. Bad press is still press.
Lawyer. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an auditor. I'm just a dude reading public documents and asking questions. So let's ask some questions. Let's start with Jake Hoffman, because actually his story tells you everything about how this network operates. In September of 2020, the Washington Post published an investigation into an Arizona marketing firm called Rally Forge LLC. Now, what they found was that Rally Forge had been paying teenagers, including minors, to create fake social media accounts and post pro-Trump content.
When you really think about it, we've reached a point where authenticity is almost impossible to separate from performance. The more real someone tries to appear online, the more curated it feels. Everyone's trying to seem relatable, humble, or transparent, but behind the scenes, entire teams are strategizing every post, every comment, every image. It's like one big stage show that never ends. And that's what makes this story about TPUSA and all its surrounding personalities so fascinating. It's not just about politics, it's about power dynamics in the digital age. You've got content creators, fundraisers, PR experts, consultants, and influencers all playing their parts in one giant game of influence. And the public? They're the audience, reacting, resharing, debating without realizing they're part of the script too. That's why Dan's investigation struck a chord. It's not that people were shocked to see money moving in strange directions. It's that they finally saw the curtain pulled back on how influence really operates. Seeing payments going to connected companies, seeing overlapping roles, it confirmed what a lot of people already suspected but couldn't prove. The truth is, these setups exist everywhere. Nonprofits, political orgs, corporations, even the entertainment industry, they all operate on networks of trust, loyalty, and strategic partnerships. And those partnerships often blur ethical lines. But unless something blatantly illegal happens, it usually just becomes another chapter in how business gets done. Still, this story hits differently because it's happening in an era where the internet never forgets. Every screenshot, every old post, every public record gets archived, reposted, and analyzed endlessly. There's no hiding anymore. Even if your intentions are good, one small oversight can become the headline of the week, and for figures like Erica, Charlie, or anyone tied to high-profile movements, that kind of exposure can be brutal. But here's the twist that no one likes to admit. We're all complicit in keeping it alive. Every click, every share, every "did you see this?" text message keeps the fire burning. Outrage is addictive, and curiosity is unstoppable. People love a scandal, but they also love pretending they're just interested in the truth. It's human nature, and the internet has turned that instinct into a full-blown industry. So maybe the real question isn't who did what or who's right or wrong, it's whether any of this can even be stopped. Because as long as attention equals currency, the cycle keeps turning. Someone will always dig, someone will always react, and someone will always benefit from the noise. And that's why this whole TPUSA situation, the audits, the side companies, the social media storms, they're all just modern-day examples of how influence looks now. It's not about old-school corruption or secret deals in smoky rooms anymore. It's about perception management, digital, fast, and constant. In a way, it's almost poetic. The internet gave people the power to question authority, but it also gave authority the power to reinvent itself faster than ever before. The game didn't end, it just moved online, and everyone's playing whether they realize it or not. So this brings everything full circle, the big picture we've been building towards since the beginning. Jake Forge's company, the 10-year timeline, the odd website setup, the funding trails, and those mysterious online campaigns, it all fits together like a massive digital puzzle that most people never even realize they're part of. And the deeper you look, the more it starts to make sense why these things are structured the way they are. When you step back, this isn't just about one company or one personality. It's about how modern influence actually works. Every major political group, every powerful public figure, every high-profile brand, they all rely on the same methods: visibility, consistency, and control of the narrative. It's not some wild conspiracy, it's just how the game is played in the digital age. And honestly, comparing Jake Forge's setup to other major players out there, it's almost textbook. Most big organizations have layers upon layers of companies under their umbrella. Some handle marketing, some handle consulting, others deal with outreach or social engagement. They all technically serve different purposes, but the outcome is the same. Money circulates through entities that keep influence strong and messaging aligned. It's smart, strategic, and yes, at times, a little secretive. Here's where it gets even more interesting. When Hoffman mentioned that this was a 10-year-old business, it wasn't just a throwaway comment, it was a clue. It means that long before anyone was paying attention, there was already a foundation being built, a network, a structure, a playbook that's now paying off big time. You can rename a company, rebrand the site, shift domains, and reorganize, but the operation behind it usually stays the same. That's exactly why people are starting to connect those dots now. And those digital campaigns, they don't appear out of nowhere. Running organized online networks costs money, big money. You need servers, content schedulers, ad budgets, social media managers, and data analysts. That's why seeing big checks moving around doesn't automatically mean wrongdoing. It could simply mean they're funding the machinery that keeps their voice loud in the online chaos. But here's the fascinating and slightly unsettling part. The same techniques being used here are used by almost every major player in modern culture. Political campaigns, entertainment empires, corporate PR teams, even influencer agencies, they all hire digital firms that specialize in shaping perception. That's the new power game, not telling people what to think, but showing them what everyone else seems to think until they quietly go along with it. You see it all over the internet. One topic starts trending, and suddenly hundreds of accounts are posting the same talking points. People assume, well, if everyone's saying it, it must be true. But half of those voices might be paid consultants, digital teams, or automated accounts designed to give a sense of momentum. That's how online opinion gets sculpted. It's not about facts, it's about volume and repetition. Now, if you're someone like Hoffman or Jake Forge and you know how to run that kind of operation effectively, of course big organizations will hire you. They're not just buying services, they're buying influence, control, and visibility, and when something works, it gets used again and again. That's why some people look at these payment trails and think, this is shady, while others go, that's just how digital media works now. Both sides have a point. Even the secrecy makes sense if you think about it. If you're managing online influence campaigns, you don't exactly want random people stumbling onto your site and exposing your client list. You want to look legitimate for contracts and taxes, but invisible to everyone else. That's why these websites are so stripped down and unsearchable. They're real businesses that live in the gray area between transparency and privacy. And this right here is the heart of the story. The internet has blurred the line between marketing, manipulation, and media. What used to be obvious PR spin is now disguised as grassroots opinion. What used to be advertising is now organic engagement. And what used to be small-scale messaging is now global influence that moves faster than any newsroom can keep up with. That's why Dan's work hit people so hard. He wasn't just exposing payments, he was exposing the hidden gears behind modern persuasion. When people realize that what looks like random chatter online might actually be orchestrated by professionals with six-figure budgets, it changed the way they saw everything. It's not about one organization doing something wrong. It's about realizing that everyone powerful is playing the same game. And honestly, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start noticing patterns everywhere, the same phrasing popping up across accounts, the same kind of videos trending at the same time, the same influencers suddenly aligning on the same viewpoint. It's coordination at scale. Some call it strategy, others call it manipulation, but either way, it works. Now back to TPUSA and all the players involved: Erica, Hoffman, Stacy, Jake. They're just pieces in a much bigger puzzle. The world of influence has no borders now. Political movements and online branding overlap so tightly that sometimes even the insiders forget where one ends and the other begins. And that's why transparency matters more than ever, because perception has become a weapon. When Charlie Kirk called for that deep audit, maybe he realized exactly how tangled it had all become. Maybe he saw that every payment, every contract, every consulting deal could eventually be interpreted as a move in an influence war. And maybe that's why people are suddenly paying attention again, because it's not just about who did what, it's about what that structure means for everyone watching from the outside. And here's the truth that nobody really likes to say out loud. In 2026, there's almost no way to separate politics from digital manipulation. The same tools that help creators grow their audiences are the same tools used to sway public opinion. Bots, fake engagement, amplified outrage, it's all part of the same ecosystem that rewards noise over nuance. And the more you understand how it works, the less shocking it all becomes. So maybe the question isn't whether these people did something wrong, maybe it's whether the system itself encourages this kind of behavior. Because when success depends on visibility and visibility depends on algorithms and algorithms reward chaos, what else would you expect people to do? They're playing the game as it's designed. And that's why, despite all the controversy, it's important to talk about these things openly. Not to cancel anyone, not to attack, but to understand, to pull back the curtain and see how influence operates in real time. Because if we can recognize the pattern, we can at least choose how to engage with it instead of just being swept along. So yeah, Jake Forge's story might sound wild, and these payments might raise questions, but they're also a perfect snapshot of how our digital world really works today. Every post, every campaign, every viral wave, it's all part of a massive, invisible web built to shape what people think, share, and believe. And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive for now, but trust me, this story isn't over. There's still more to uncover, more threads to connect, and more questions that need answers. So if you made it all the way through this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more inside stories like this, share the video with someone who loves peeling back the layers of online influence, and drop a comment below letting me know your take on all of this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.